I have to have the questions though.
Okay.
Okay. First, just tell us your name and where you grew up.
Jean Carpenter Bellamy, and I grew up on a farm west of Stephen, Minnesota. And before I started my first grade, I couldn't even talk English. It was Mother and Dad used to talk French to us, and they wouldn't answer us unless we spoke French to them. So we all learned to talk French.
So where did your parents come from that they spoke French?
Mother came from a little town in Minnesota, I don't know where, and Dad from Canada.
Was it Gulf, Canada? Is that what?
Yeah, right.
Okay. So do you know anything about your grandparents?
Oh, the only thing I know is my grandfather owned the land where the Oakwood Church is, and that's where he was buried, in that Oakwood Cemetery.
Where's the Oakwood Cemetery?
Well, it's right next to the Oakwood Church. It's west of, east of Grafton.
Oh yeah, okay.
Okay.
Okay. So what was can you tell us a little bit about your childhood and having 10 siblings, being the youngest of 11 children?
11 kids. It's no wonder my mother is dead today. I don't know. She had 11 children,
Didn't
and
she
I'm
have
the youngest
13?
one.
Mother, didn't she have 13?
13 was Mother and Dad.
Well, I thought that she had 2 miscarriages or
No,
something.
she
Oh,
never had one,
Oh, she
any
did.
miscarriages.
And all of those 11 children grew up to be adults and have families?
Right,
Wow.
all of them.
So how many?
And then my oldest sister is still living, and she's 99 years old, and she lives on the Canadian side in Niagara Falls.
And that's Amanda, right?
Amanda.
Mm-hmm.
What were the names of all her?
Do you remember all your siblings from the oldest to yourself?
Oh, yeah. Helen and Addie, Julia, Oscar, Amanda, Eddie, Cordelia, Tony, and Agnes,
And then you. Is that 11?
My grandma.
and then me.
Well, what do you remember about going to school when you were
Well,
young?
I went through the 3rd grade, no, 5th grade. We were living on the farm. And then after the 5th grade, I went to Mount St. Benedict in Crookston until the 8th grade. And then from 8th grade, I went to high school, 3 years of it in Stephen.
In Stephen, Minnesota.
Yeah, but I never did graduate because Dad had his leg amputated and they needed somebody at home to help out.
So after your 3rd year of high school, you stayed on the farm and helped out the family? Okay. So then what did, my mom told me that you went to school to be a nun at one point. When did that
That's when I went to Mount St. Benedict.
That was the high school?
But then I went home for a while and then I decided, no, I don't want to be a nun.
How did you ever end up going to school to be a nun in the first place?
Because Mother always said after having 8 girls, she wanted one of them to be a nun.
And you were her last chance?
Yeah.
But you didn't want to be a nun though?
No, not after I went home for a while and started going to dances. And
Uh-huh.
that was it.
So then, what happened after, well, how old were you when your parents died? So you...
Well, my dad died the year we were married. That was in 1936, and my mother died in 1935.
So your mother died just before
Yeah.
you were married?
His dad died. Her dad died just before
Oh.
they were married.
And so how old were they then? They must have lived pretty long then.
I was,
How old
old
were
was I?
how old were your parents?
Dad was 72 and Mother was 64.
Okay. So then how did you end up meeting Grandpa Russ?
Well, he worked for the doctors. He was a chauffeur
I don't know.
in Drayton. And I was working for one of the doctor's wives. And that's how we met.
So how long did you know him before you got married?
Oh, let's see. About a year,
About a year?
year and a half.
Did he ask you or did you ask him?
He asked me.
So then, tell us about your first years of being married. Because you got married
He worked in the post office.
and this is in Drayton now, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
He was assistant postmaster, and I worked in a cafe.
How did you get to
And
Drayton?
we paid $5 a month rent for a three-room apartment. And then we got a chance to get into a house for $8 a month for 5 rooms.
So how much was Grandpa making at the post office at that time?
$35 a month.
$35 a month. Was that a pretty good
And
salary?
I was making $1 a day in the cafe.
So were you guys doing fairly well then?
Never saved any money.
But you got by.
But when Jackie was born, it cost me $25 for the hospital and the doctor.
Wow, almost a whole month's salary. Well, Mother, when did you decide to go to California?
Well, Russell went to California first.
Oh.
That was when, during wartime, he started working for Douglas Aircraft.
Well, why did you go out there? Why did you decide to leave Drayton?
He didn't like to be in the post office. His feet were bothering him because it was on a cement floor. So then when he decided to go work for aircraft company, because he liked airplanes so well anyway.
Uh-huh.
Well, didn't Grandpa go to school to?
Oh
to-
yeah, he went to school at Wahpeton.
For
And he graduated from,
Was it aeronautical mechanics?
yeah, so he was airplane mechanic
yeah, right.
then. And then, so when you moved out to California, you brought Mom was a baby?
Yeah.
Okay.
Jackie was
I think I was-
almost 4 years old
Oh,
and
almost.
Daryl was 8 months.
So Daryl was already born too.
Yeah.
Okay. And then how long were you out in California?
Let me see.
I think you moved back when I was 10,
Yeah.
so about
That'd
7
be
years.
about
So
5
about
or 6
7,
years.
5 or 6 years?
Yeah.
Well, how did you like living out in California?
I liked it. But then they were laying off people out at Douglas Aircraft after wartime. So he decided he wanted to farm. So he bought his share. He bought out his brother's share and his sister's share, Aunt May's and Uncle Bud's.
Okay. So then he moved back and started working his parents' farm.
Farming.
Okay. So then was it his dad who built up that farm that you lived down in Drayton? With the old,
I
do you know the history of the old farmhouse and the barn and stuff like that?
Was it his grandfather that started that farm, wasn't it?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So
Dad's grandpa.
so Grandpa Russell's grandpa
Yeah.
started that farm
Right.
out by Drayton.
And then his dad didn't like to farm though, did he?
No. Grandpa worked
Grandpa
in.
Jim did
He
not
was the
like
manager of the Farmers Union elevator in Drayton. He didn't like farming.
He would farm, do just enough to get the crops in and everything, but then he worked in town.
Uh-huh. Well, tell us about life in Drayton when you got back from California and started farming.
We lived on a farm.
Yeah, but tell us
And
about that.
girls went to school out in the country.
In a one-room schoolhouse.
Hmm.
And then Dick was born by this time, wasn't he?
Oh yeah, Dick was born out in, well, he was born in Drayton, but I mean, we had gone back to California again.
Why didn't you have him in California?
Because it was during wartime, and I had to let them know 3 months ahead of time in order to get a reservation
For the
to have a
hospital.
baby in that hospital.
Oh my goodness.
So you decided to go back to Drayton then?
Yeah. After 3 months, well, it was 2.5 months, then I went back to Drayton and had Dick.
So you were like about 7 months pregnant when you went back to
Yeah.
Drayton.
How did you go back and forth between California
On
and Drayton?
train.
The train?
And remember going back, Mother, you met that woman? What was her name?
Oh, that was when I first went out there. I met this woman. She got on in St. Paul. That's where we took the train.
Uh-huh.
And she helped me all the way to California with the kids. But that was before Dick was born.
Oh, I thought Dick was born after.
No, no.
Wasn't her name Marion or something? Marion
Yeah.
Brown? Was that it?
It's in a
Well, you kept tabs
an
with her.
address book that I've got. But oh yeah, I wrote to her for many
Yeah,
years.
Yeah. Because I remember we got a wedding gift from her.
That's enough.
Oh, can't we do some more? We haven't even talked. Can you tell us some? Because you've told us some good stories about when you were living on the farm and when Mom and Daryl and Dick were growing up and things like that. You know, like about the time when you had some cows in the barn.
Yeah, but that you you don't want to hear that.
Sure we do.
No.
Well, how about, because we haven't even talked about when you left the farm either. What was that, 1976 or 7?
76, I think it was.
That you auctioned off
That's
the
when-
farm?
We didn't auction it off. We sold it to American Crystal.
Oh, that's right. And then you
Right,
auctioned off
Sugar
all
Ridge
your
Crystal.
property, right?
Huh? Yeah.
Okay.
Then we had a sale,
Mhm.
auction sale. Then we went to Arizona.
Why did you decide to retire when you did?
Well, it was just at retirement age, and that Sugar Beet Lagoon was so bad that we had to move out.
Hmm.
And then the sugar beet company offered you a good price.
Yeah.
And then you decided to move to Arizona.
Russell decided that.
Russell decided and you conceded to go along.
Absolutely.
So you would have rather stayed in North Dakota or?
Yeah, I would have
Minnesota?
rather stayed on the farm because the
Harold.
house was all modernized. You know, we had
Uh-huh.
running water and a bathroom, which I hadn't had for many years.
Hmm. And Grandpa had his nice shop that
Yeah, he did.
was so well taken care of.
And Harold would have let you stay there, remember that?
Yeah, he would have let us stay there.
Because Grandma says now she wishes they would have stayed there and then in the wintertime gone to Arizona, but because of
Of the
Dakota-
horse, we couldn't come back and forth.
Hmm. So, and Grandpa bought Dakota. It was right after you moved out to Arizona the first
Right.
time, right?
About a year after that.
And then how long did you live in St. David?
4 years.
4 years?
And we came back to Walker and lived 4 years.
And lived 4 years. So you're on Long Lake for 4 years?
Yeah. Then we went back to Arizona and lived in Cochise for about 4 years.
For about 4 years.
And we came back here.
And then you moved back out to the place by Don and Daryl.
Yeah, right.
Can you think of any, I mean, because you've told us a lot of good stories. Can you think of any stories that stick out in your mind from growing up on the farm or anything like that? Or when it was especially hard on the farm?
How about your farm when you were a girl and things like
Huh?
that? How about when you were a girl on the farm? What was it like?
I enjoyed it. We used to go get the cows,
You like,
climb up in the tree once in a while when the bull would take after me.
how about the time that, you know, when the lightning hit the cow?
Oh yeah, I went to get the cows one night, and it was just were storming real bad, lightning and thunder, but I still had to go.
Hmm.
And just before I got up to the cows, the lightning struck a tree, and they were standing underneath it. And one of the branches was touching a cow, and she just fell over. The lightning had killed her. So I didn't even bother with the cows. I just ran back home, told Dad about it.
Nothing happened to you though? You didn't get knocked down or anything?
No,
You weren't stunned or anything?
it kind of stunned me, you know, but I
Yeah.
didn't fall over or anything. So then they went out, and our dad went out and brought the cows home. And then later on, they pulled that cow home.
Yeah. Well, tell a little bit about your dad. Remember what made him decide not to go to church anymore? Remember that story?
Oh, he had gone to church one Sunday, and they didn't combining, they called it thrashing in those days. And they just had to get it done before it rained. So he had some clean bib overalls on. And he went to church in those, and the priest said, mentioned something about why people couldn't get dressed when they go to church. And he was looking right at my dad. So Dad got up and walked out of church, and he never went back while that priest was there.
Yeah, I went to church again.
Well, we haven't talked much about like Grandpa Russ's family either, because so he had a sister May, and his brother Bud is still alive in California, right?
But his sister passed away before he did. It was about 4 years ago. You and Daryl went to that funeral. I
No,
know.
more like, well, she was 83 when
Yeah.
she died. And she was 7 years older than Dad.
Yeah.
So she'd be 92 now. So that was like 9 years ago that she passed away.
So then Grandpa Russ's parents, they lived on the farm, right?
Right.
And so did they live on the farm? Did they retire on the farm?
No.
No?
Grandpa. No, Grandpa got ill. He wasn't.
This is James Bellamy, right?
Yeah. I mean, his mind was going bad.
But
So-
see, that was after Grandma died. Because
Yeah.
Grandma died when? She was only about 62 or
Yeah.
something.
And then Grandpa Bellamy got married again.
Oh wait, so Lida Bellamy died first,
Yeah.
and then James Bellamy got married after she
Yeah.
died? Oh.
And then he died later on.
Who did he marry?
A lady from Bosemont, a Mrs. Parker.
Mrs. Parker. Did
Yeah.
Grandpa Russ get along with her?
Or,
He didn't?
uh,
Why not?
She was an awful woman, wasn't she? Yeah.
Why was she awful?
Well, I remember one time they came to get. See, we had moved on the farm
Uh-huh.
right after Grandma had died, and the furniture and everything was still there. Well, Mrs. Parker decided, she was married then to Grandpa afterwards,
Yeah.
and she decided that we weren't going to have that furniture. So they had a sale of the furniture, and I had taken some little dish or something, put it up on the window ledge. I thought I'll have that as a souvenir. And she saw that, and I said, well, couldn't I have that? No, you can't have that, she said.
So she took every last thing out of there?
Everything.
And then Dad's Auntie Florence, what did she do?
Who's Dad's Auntie Florence?
Huh?
And that's Grandpa Jim's sister. Bought some of the furniture at the auction,
Yeah.
didn't she? And gave
Well, she
it
bought the
back.
dining room table at the auction, and that's the table that Paul and Becky have right now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's kind of neat. Why did Grandpa Bellamy let her do that? Do you
I
think?
suppose
Well,
he
Grandpa
liked
Jim
her.
said it was his furniture, and she just really,
Yeah.
well, she was a tyrant.
It belonged to him,
And I
you
don't
know,
know
so.
how Grandpa Jim let her. Maybe he was getting sick then. Maybe
I
his
don't know.
mind was going then. He got, what do they call it, hardening of the arteries. And
Oh, yeah.
Well, I know one time he was starting the fire. He was going to start the fire in the kitchen, because he stayed with us
Oh, he did.
at first before he got married. And
Oh.
he was going to start a fire in the kitchen, and he poured kerosene on some hot coals, and it came up and singed his eyebrows and burnt part of his hair. So then Grandpa and May decided that maybe they should put him in a rest home, or so that's where he went.
we went to Jamestown, didn't we?
Yeah.
And then he died shortly after that.
Hmm.
Wasn't there very long. That was 50 years ago.
That's all.
We've still got some tape left, Grandma.
You don't have to use it all up, do you?
Well, it's only a half an hour tape. Got any other questions, Mom?
But I never did like Arizona.
You never did like Arizona.
Mm.
So you spent at least 8
I
years
was-
there.
You're too far away from the kids.
Yeah. Well, your place on Long Lake was really nice.
Oh yeah, I like that too.
With
But
the-
Grandpa figured it was too much work for him,
Uh-huh.
which it was.
Well, he didn't like the winter either.
No,
And then
couldn't
this,
ride his horse.
yeah.
Well, what made Grandpa go to Arizona?
Yeah, where did he ever get the idea in the first place that he wanted to go to Arizona so bad?
Oh, we went there right after we had the sale of the farm.
No, I know, but he always used to say, I'm
Oh,
going to sell
he-
the farm and move to Arizona. He
He
always
went
used to say
to
that.
Arizona 2 different winters with Ralph Elliott. Ralph Elliott had some land up there, and he used to plant a certain kind of wheat, and then after it was harvested there, he'd bring it back to North Dakota, and Russell used to go and help him.
Oh.
2 weeks at a time, and he said I used to be on that tractor out there with no shirt on in December.
Uh-huh.
And he liked that.
Yeah, and that's when it started.
Mhm. And then so he had, he had horses on the farm, right? So, I mean,
No.
Was Dakota his first horse?
Yeah. Well, we had a horse, but it belonged to what is it, Stewart,
Oh, yeah. Well, he
because
was,
they went to California, so they asked Russell to keep the horse for him, and that's what. When we had the horse, then Russell used to take the kids back and forth to school.
Oh, in the winter, I think
Yeah.
my mom used to tell me about how they had a sleigh.
Remember that time we had gone to Drayton, and we had the horse tied at a telephone pole
Uh-huh.
there, because we used to leave the car up on the highway,
Uh-huh.
and then we'd take the horse up as far as the car, drive into town, and then buy groceries and stuff. Then we came back, put all the groceries in that sleigh, and Russell couldn't hang on to that horse. He was raring to go home, you know.
get
Uh-huh.
into the barn.
Yeah.
And he turned the corner there at the mailbox, and the groceries were flying out. So we went back the next day and picked up the groceries and stuff.
Didn't you get stranded one time in the car in a blizzard? When was that?
I was working in the store then.
In the creamery?
No,
Or-
for Lloyd Meister.
In the
What
grocery
is
store.
In the
What
grocery
that?
store?
Yeah, was it the Red Owl? Or?
Yeah, the Red
Oh,
Owl.
the Red Owl.
And I had to curl that night, so I thought I'm not going to go home. I'll just stay in town. And after curling, why this storm had come up. I drove by the sugar bee plant, couldn't even see the lights or anything, and usually that was lit up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And just before I got home, to turn to go home, the one wheel of the car went into the ditch, and I couldn't get out. So I stayed there from 10 o'clock at night until noon the next day, and it was 17 below zero.
Oh my gosh.
But I had a full tank of gas, and every hour or so I'd start up the motor, you know, and about 7 o'clock the next morning, all the lights went on the dashboard. I was out of gasoline, you know.
Yeah.
And this girl I worked with at the store, about 10 o'clock, she called out the farm, and Russell answered, and she said, "Isn't Jean coming to work?" Oh, he said, "She stayed in town over at Rainey's."
Oh, so he thought you were in town.
So then Russell called Rainey's, and I hadn't stayed there.
Oh my gosh. So Grandpa must have been pretty
So
worried.
he got on his tractor and came out, and the one north side of the car was just covered with snow, just banked.
Uh-huh.
So he had to go around the right-hand side to open the door,
Uh-huh.
and he thought, sure, maybe I had gotten out and walked, you know. I tried.
It's lucky you stayed in
I
the
got
car.
out of the car and went about maybe from here to the bathroom.
Yeah.
I thought, oh, I'll never make it. Oh, I know I didn't think that, but
Oh,
I
you
just
wouldn't have made
turned
it.
around, went and could hardly see the car when I
Oh my
turned around,
gosh.
but I knew I was still on the road, you know.
Yeah.
So
My
I
goodness.
stayed there until about noon the next day, and he came out and got me
Wow.
on the tractor.
Well, what did he say when he saw you in the car?
Oh, he just broke out. He cried.
He was so happy to see that you're okay.
Oh, golly, yes.
Wow.
I forget what he said, but
Yeah. So when you moved back to the farm from California, did that house didn't have electricity or a telephone or
No.
running water or anything?
oh, we had the telephone, you know, we connected it again, but no running water, no. We had water in the cistern,
Uh-huh.
you know, but we had to haul water from town to drink.
Mhm.
We used the cistern water for washing dishes and bathing
Uh-huh.
and stuff.
Well, I remember when we were little kids out at the farm, you had a milk can in that back room with that was good well water, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, we brought that from town.
Oh, you brought that from town.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Because we couldn't use the well water that we had out the farm because after the high water, you know, that
Uh-huh.
frogs and everything else was in it.
Did that farm ever get, because that farm was right by the river, did that
Oh,
ever,
yes,
did the
it
farm
got
ever get
flooded.
flooded? Even, did the house ever get flooded?
Not inside.
Not inside, but it would,
The basement was full.
But it never did get on the main floor, did it?
It was about 3 inches from going over on main floor.
wow.
Oh, remember the times you'd have to use a boat to get out of there? You and Dad stayed
Oh,
there,
yeah.
and we stayed at some
At-
neighbors so we could go to school.
Evanson.
Yeah. Right.
Another thing I want to hear about is my mom has told me that she was a very unlikely match for my dad. Do you remember when they started dating and stuff?
I think we lived out up over the locker
Yeah,
plant.
we did when Dad and I started going together. Yeah.
Yeah.
Where'd you live?
Well, they had some nice apartments above the locker plant. It was one of the newer buildings in Drayton. And they would live there in the wintertime, you know,
Yeah.
so that they wouldn't have to come back.
Well, Russell was
Oh.
working in the post office
Yeah,
then.
Dad was
Oh,
the
okay.
He was
acting postmaster.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we have my dad has a picture of Grandpa Russ when he was postmaster and Grandpa Rainey.
right.
I think
have that
when
too.
he was
Yeah.
when he was
you
mayor.
gave me that mother.
Yeah.
And they were putting in a new stamp machine or something
Yeah.
like that.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's a good picture.
yeah.
Okay.
But yeah, no. Remember when Dad said to me, "What's wrong with you? Do you need to rob the cradle or something like that?" When I started going with Eddie, he didn't think it was a good idea.
Well, I know he didn't think it was a good idea for you to go to John Shoemaker
Well, I know that.
because he said no. He said you'll have to change to their religion and
Uh-huh.
Well, that's what he was.
Well, that was a
worried
big
about.
deal back then, wasn't it? When people were from different religions
Oh,
and
yeah.
were getting
Oh
married.
yeah, that was a whole different time.
Well, and they got married in the Catholic Church, right?
right.
Okay, so was that a problem for anybody when they got married in the Catholic Church?
I don't think so.
No, it really wasn't. Although we couldn't have a mass, we couldn't go behind the altar rails,
Uh-huh.
and it was just a really short ceremony because of that. But like when it was even worse when Grandma was married, they couldn't get married in the church at all.
No, we were married in the sacristy.
Yeah, they
You
couldn't
know,
go
the
inside
little
the
room off
church.
from the church.
Because Grandpa wasn't a Catholic.
Right.
So, and what was Grandpa a Methodist?
Right.
Okay, and then
Yeah,
so
that's why he was buried. I mean, his services were in the Methodist church when he died.
yeah. And then so Mom ended up marrying a Methodist too because my dad was a Methodist, right? They went to that
Yeah.
Methodist
Yeah.
church too.
Right. Well, when I was a little, didn't Grandma Bellamy used to take me to Sunday school?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. And I learned all these little.
And
Methodist
Jackie
Sunday
got to
school
liking
hymns.
liking the Methodist Sunday school, and I thought, gotta put a stop to that.
Who was taking you to Sunday school?
My Grandma Bellamy.
Oh, your Grandma Bellamy.
Dad's,
Oh, Lida.
yeah, Lida,
Oh, okay.
Dad's mother.
Yeah.
So.
Well, do you remember much about when Mom and Dad were dating and stuff like that? And
I don't remember.
Not a whole lot, I guess.
I remember, but there's nothing to.
Don't you remember how?
Never did worry about them.
yeah.
Mother, don't you remember how Ed used to come up and sit in that apartment and wait for me to come home from Mayville?
Oh yeah, once in a while he did that.
Yeah, and Aunt Addie would be there,
Right.
and she used to say, "There's something wrong with that kid."
Why
'Cause
was?
he would sit there and not say one word. He would just wait for me to come home.
Is this before you were dating?
Well, we were sort of dating, but I was dating another guy too,
Oh.
and so he would sit up there and wait.
So he had to try pretty hard then to win you over.
Yeah, he really did. He did. Yeah, that was fun. Had a good time with those two guys.
That's funny. Well, do you have any advice for your all of your grandchildren? You have 10 grandchildren, right?
Right.
And
And,
then-
one coming up next month.
Well, you have 10 grandchildren, and
Oh.
you now have 10 great-grandchildren
Great
too.
grandchildren.
So you have 10 of each, and then pretty soon you're gonna have 11 great-grandchildren.
Pretty soon.
Yeah. Do you have any advice for all your grandchildren?
No, I don't.
No, I don't. You don't? You seem to be, yeah. I mean, because Grandma, you seem to get along really well. I mean, after Grandpa's death was really hard, but you seem to have adjusted really well. You know,
After what?
after Grandpa's death, you seem to have adjusted pretty well.
Well,
You know, you take good care of yourself. You still go bowling, don't you?
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Windsor, didn't you just win something? Or didn't you have a high game or something recently?
No, but I came in